Naze is Medaka Box's best girl and is my second favourite character in the entire series. Her philosophy of making herself suffer and devoiding herself of enjoyment and love for the sake of productivity is both immensely interesting, but also very much flawed and quite saddening. And so that is what we will of course discuss today. If you find yourself entertained at any point during the video, then consider liking, subscribing and ringing that bell, as I cannot explain to you how much such a small action can do for this channel. Also, if you want to support this channel even further, then consider pledging to my Patreon. Anyway, on with the video. Naze Youka, also known as Kurokami Kujiro, is the older sister of Medaka and previous supervisor of the Flask project as one of the 13 party, her codename being Black or White. Much like her siblings, she was born as an abnormal, extremely gifted in her intelligence. She even surpassed the goddess Medaka in her knowledge of biology. This was of course due to her abnormality remodelling, which we will explore in detail in just a minute. As a child, Kujiro came to adopt the mindset that to be productive and to succeed, you had to be devoid of pleasure. This was because she believed that the best geniuses came from a hell-like environment, and so to replicate this herself, she made her own life devoid of fun. All she did was study, she owned not a single toy and ate the minimum amount of bland food, or drinking only flavourless water. She made sure she didn't enjoy any aspect of her life, so that she would be a genius. However, even so, those measures weren't enough. After all, she was born into wealth with natural talent and with a loving family. So that all had to go too. So to do so, she left home to remove her loving family and wealth from her life, and then used a memory repressing drug so that she would forget any pleasures from that life and so that she would forget her own immense talent. And this was the moment that Kurokami Kujiro became Naze Youka. In an unnamed middle school, Naze became known as the most bullied kid in school. As well, she desired suffering. However, in her final year of middle school, Naze was approached by Koga. And what did Koga say to her? To the girl at the bottom of the school, who wore a bag over their heads? Well, Koga simply asked that they do something crazy together. And so starts the friendship of Naze and Koga, something pivotal to Naze's character arc as a whole. And now we got her backstory out of the way, let's look into her name and character design. Naze's name holds a lot of relevance to her overall character. To start with, her birth name Kurokami Kujiro means Black God Whale. This is because Kurokami means Black God, something shown very much literally with Medaka's Altered God mode, but also ties into Naze's character with her codename Black or White containing the word black. Her given name meaning whale holds true to the Kurokami naming scheme, with her siblings also being named after marine animals, Medaka meaning rice fish and Maguro meaning tuna. Now, although there isn't any apparent relation between Naze and whales, it can be argued that since whales in Japanese culture are an expensive form of seafood, this could relate to her rich background, something which also lines up with Maguro as tuna is again an expensive seafood, but that may be a stretch. Also, I guess whales migrate long ways, which could link into Naze leaving home, but I'm really reaching at bandages here, so if you have any other interpretations, I'd love to hear them down below in the comment section. Her codename Black White also reflects her character, as at first she seems very black and white, a cruel person who likes pain and doesn't care for others. There doesn't seem to be any nuance at all, it's all quite black and white. However, this is then shown to be false and her true caring side is revealed, the side which had been hidden under her veil, which is very fitting as Black White can also be translated as Black Bandage, as her black dark side is only a bandage to cover up her true feelings underneath her veil, which is made of bandages. Now that's some pretty cool symbolism. And of course, if her birth name and her codename have meaning, then you know for sure her self-given name does as well. And well, it probably does. I must admit my Japanese isn't at the level yet where I can understand what the hell the name Naze Youka means, though as far as I can tell, and take this with a heap of salt, as it might not be right, Naze basically translates to why, which is a very open-ended word, if true, and I guess then could reference Naze questioning her own philosophy and asking why she has to suffer, or could instead reference her identity issues as she erased her own memories and hides behind a veil, so her name Naze could then mean why am I me? But yeah, no idea if that is correct at all, just trying to do my best for you and give at least one interpretation. Her design though doesn't require any translating to understand, and is honestly up there for one of my all-time favourite designs in all of anime, specifically when she's wearing her veil, as it looks so freaking amazing. And side tangent, why don't they make figures of her with her veil on? Like, I love my figure of her, but she looks so much cooler with her veil than without it, it just kind of really ticks me off. Anyway, her design is of course amazing, and you already know it holds a lot of relevance to her overall character. First off, she wears a full body skin tight suit, which is technically called the Black Ogre, and is a temperature regulating slash proof suit, but more importantly it is a suit that limits her contact with the outside world, with even her fingers being covered. There's a physical barrier between her skin and the world, as well. Naze doesn't desire contact with the world, in fact she wants the opposite. She wants to be away from it, away from the joys of the world, as she wants to suffer. Due to this suit, she can't even feel the sensation of touch properly, as she shuts herself off from the world in pursuit of study and progress. The suit then is a physical representation of her isolation from the world. And the same is also partly true for her veil, but more importantly her veil acts to hide her face from the world. This not only disconnects her from her past self, as her past face is covered and her old identity as Kurokami Kujira is hidden, but also what do you associate with bandages? Well, with operations. And what does Naze do? She operates on people, and well, what do you use bandages to cover up? An injury. What do injuries cause? Pain. And what is Naze's whole thing? Well, it's pain and suffering. So that lines up with her character nicely as well. And by the same logic, the same can be said for the bloody knife stuck in her head, which also ties back to her memory loss, as the blade is stabbed into her cranium, where her brain is, which you can obviously then associate to a head injury and then to memory loss. See, it all ties together. Naze's abnormality, as said before, is remodelling, a power which rather simply allows her to remodel people. She can make animals strong enough to not even fear Medaka, and can make even normal people superhumanly strong, as shown by Koga. The skill even stretches to the point she can operate on herself, so that is moving into the realm of manga spoilers. Now we've explored Naze's childhood, her name origin and design origins, and her abnormality itself, I think it's time we now discuss her involvement in the story of Medaka Box and how her character develops. We first meet her in the story as a member of the 13 party, with her and Koga going after Akane. Naze, as we first meet her, is a very cold and calculating person. The fact she is also stood at arms crossed is technically because she isn't wearing a bra and needs to support her giant breasts, but also acts to show how she is a hands-off person, not getting her hands dirty, and instead making others, in this case Koga, do her work for her. We learn that she operated on Koga, her best friend, and made her into an abnormal, and that she is in fact the supervisor of the Fast Clan, helping to make great strides towards the end goal of turning everyone to abnormals. Now, unlike Miyakonjo, I don't believe Naze is particularly invested in the end goal of the plan itself, and is instead far more interested in the process itself, as she desires to be a genius born from hardship, and what is more impressive than perfecting a way to turn normals into abnormals. And so she must defend her research even against the student council, leading to a battle against Akane, though Koga, her greatest creation, does most of the fighting. And while since Akane is the person changed most by Medaka, and Koga is the person changed most by Naze, the former in heart, the latter in body, you can also say that both of the Kurokami sisters are one in the same, the difference being execution, one changing people's hearts, the other people's bodies. As the fight continues, we learn that the reason Naze considers Koga a friend, and the reason she doesn't throw her side in pursuit of suffering, is because they both suffer together. However, this isn't exactly true, and even if it's just subconscious, Naze does enjoy Koga's friendship in the same way she once enjoyed the love of her family. However, she threw that family aside in pursuit of suffering, so even when her brother and sister confront her and her true identity is revealed, she still stands as their enemy, as she has cut ties with them, and making your family, your loved ones, your enemies, well, doesn't that just scream suffering? In fact, she even goes as far as removing Medaka's heart and giving her a new one, even though she is still her precious little sister. As Naze will do anything, she will do whatever it takes to suffer. Well, almost anything, as one thing makes her take back all her previous decisions and makes her admit that she was stupid for wanting to suffer. And that's when Koga has her powers unreasonably taxed by Miyakonjo and falls to the ground bloody and lifeless. As Koga was Naze's friend, and no matter what Naze said, she did enjoy being with Koga, she did love her as a friend, not just someone to suffer beside. And so she takes back everything. She admits the flaws in her actions and even asks the brother she left behind, the life she left behind, to help her. She pleads with tears in her eyes. She should have been happy as she had finally felt true suffering, the loss of the one most important to you. But instead she cries, as Naze is still only human, and it's in a human's nature to cry when their best friend is on death's door. And so in this moment, the majority of Naze's character arc comes to a close, as she finds something more important to her than her policy, her lifestyle of suffering. She finds a friend that she truly cares for, one more important to her than her beliefs. She comes to understand the flaw in her thinking, and by doing so she also reconciles with her brother, with the family she left behind. She admits she was wrong with this simple action, and I think there's something really powerful about that. The next section of the video will contain manga spoilers, so if you are anime only, please skip ahead to this time here. Since I imagine a lot of people haven't read the manga, I'll keep this next section of the video brief. Naze from the 13 party arc onwards becomes a far more social person, not keeping to herself as much and being fairly prominent in the events of the series. In the Kumagawa incident arc, she shows a disgust for minuses, which shows a real change in their mindset, as minuses are the result of nurture, the opposite of how abnormals are a result of nature. By being disgusted at how nature brought about minuses, she's in a way admitting to how wrong her past actions were. As it wasn't her abnormality, her nature that made her want to suffer. No, it was her nurture, in essence her choice to suffer, something she later came to regret. So by having a dislike for minuses, she's also showing a dislike for her own past actions, once again admitting she had been wrong to pursue suffering at the cost of those things and people precious to her. A real clever and brilliant piece of writing if I do say so myself. When Kumagawa asks her to join Class 13 in exchange for receiving the greatest suffering in the world, Naze, being the masochist she is quick to accept, only to later go back on the decision when she thinks back to all the people that care for her, as she is fine with betraying her friends, but not her own feelings. In order to stop the school from becoming one of minuses, one of people who suffered due to their surroundings and choices like herself, Naze chooses to fight and so joins the student council battle, filling in for Kikijima in the secretary battle, where she operates on herself and pulls out a minus of her own, Ice Fire, which could link back to her codename of Black White, as those are opposing colours and Ice and Fire are opposing elements, you could say. Shibushi being her opponent is also quite relevant as well. Naze was all about suffering, so doesn't it make sense her opponent is someone who can make one suffer by reopening old wounds? Not just physical wounds but mental ones too, and so throughout this fight Naze has to come to face not only her mental wounds, overcoming once again her past decisions to put suffering above all else, but also has to fight through the pain, the suffering of her physical wounds to defeat Shibushi. Essentially to win, she has to enter her own suffering as quickly as possible, a complete 180 to her past self who wanted to suffer above all else. Also, after she technically loses the battle, Medaka asks if she's okay with the loss, and Naze says that she was fine just looking cool in front of her sister, showing how she is at least in part reconciled with the family she left behind in the past. Naze's relationship with Zenkichi is also of some note, with it starting as a master-student relationship and then growing to be a true friendship, with Zenkichi even trusting Naze to be his vice president, his number 2, when he became student council president. And although she does still play a somewhat major role in the arcs past this, none of these appearances have much to do with her overall character arc, so for the sake of time I won't cover them. So lastly, before we get back to anime only stuff, I guess I should comment on how in the epilogue she is back running the Flask plan, this time though not fulfilling her efforts through suffering, showing that even without a hellish environment you can still accomplish great things and still be a genius, showing her past actions and thoughts wrong once and for all. And also she is one of the few characters to retain their abnormality into adulthood, which I believe is due to the fact that unlike the rest of the cast who have changed in their goals and their mindsets, Naze has not. She still seeks to be a genius, but just without the whole suffering part being a necessity. And so in a way then, she hasn't grown up like the rest of the cast, she is still the same old Naze she was, and as a result she hasn't lost her abnormality, and well, I don't see anything wrong with that. At the end of the day, Naze is a person who desires suffering, and even at the end of the story, she is still a bit of a masochist. But the key point is that she learnt that her connection to her family and friends is just as, if not more important than her suffering, and so by reconciling with her family and coming to understand her feelings for her friend, Naze was able to come to understand what she truly valued in life and so lived a happier and more fulfilling life because of it, becoming a genius with friends and family at their side, in blatant contradiction to the notion she believed as a child that geniuses are only born in hellish environments. Comment of the week comes from Felipe MR, and I must say, your words really touched my heart. If you're interested in my literary endeavours, why not check out my books Gang, Fluid Justice and People of Fate Volume 1, available at Amazon.com. And if you want to help support this channel even further, consider pledging to my Patreon, where for as little as £2.75 a month, you can get your name at the end of the video like Hikari Desu. So with all that said and done, I've been Seth the Sin, the Deadly Sin of Geek, and I'm signing out. Stay safe, everyone.